Peace and love, black family. Peace, peace, peace and love. This is the Prince of Pan-Africanism, King Kong Consciousness, International Ifa Tunde, Notorious RBG. We are live for Black Parent Teleconference, first one we've done in the 2020 calendar year. 2320158. This teleconference is only about children. So if you have a question, you can call 857-232-0158. 857-232.
Hello, please enter your 6-digit conference code. Welcome to free conference calling. The conference has not started. If you are the host, please enter your 4-digit host code to open the conference. We will now connect you to your call. You are the first attendee in this conference. The host has joined the conference.
Okay, family, so if you have a question about your child or a child, because it doesn't have to be your child, specifically in the area of education or mental health, you can call 857-232-0158. 857-232-0158. If someone could put that in the chat for me, that would be good as well. 857-232-0158. And the access code is 870-864-pound. 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 The line is wide open. I have allotted 2 hours for this. If we don't use the entire 2 hours, that is fine. Okay, if we don't use the entire 2 hours, that is fine. Okay, but this is your time. Questions from parents. Thank you, Young Cassius. 857-232-0158. Access code 870-864-pound. Thank you, Eliana on Facebook and Sister Natalie on Facebook. So I think we got a couple people who chimed in. So the way we're going to do this, family, is I'm going to ask you for your city. Okay. And then when I call your city, you can go ahead and ask your questions. I use cities instead of names because a lot of us have the same names. So for those who are on the call right now, if you have a question, please give me your city. You can just shout it out.
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. Anyone else on the line with a question right now? Okay. So we're going to start with you, good brother from Dallas, Texas. Good morning to you. Go right ahead with your question.
Good morning, good brother. I appreciate the time that you're taking to do this for us people. And the questions I have is, I'm a proud father of a 4-year-old daughter, and I want to know what are some apps or some early development tools and or games that I can install on, say, her iPad or anything like that, that she can learn and greatly impact her for her future to get a good start and a good foundation.
Okay. Well, with regard to the apps and the games, I would probably just recommend that you do a search for those. I'm a very old-fashioned type of educator, so I'm not really into the apps and things like that. But I'm not against them, though. I do support them. There's a lot of good programs on YouTube. There's a lot of good programs I've had parents show me over the years. So you won't have any problem. You know, if you type in math apps, reading apps, whatever the case may be, you won't have any issues with that. But I will say this, though. Since you are the father of a 4-year-old child, your daughter is in the age range where her vocabulary is going to expand and explode and is going to increase by thousands of words over the next year, 2 to 5. From age 2 to age 5, the vocabulary of a child will grow by thousands. And in some cases, the vocabulary can grow by tens of thousands. It is the most sensitive period in a child's life to acquire knowledge of new words. And what we want to do for children who are in the preschool age range, as is your daughter, is we want to maximize that vocabulary expansion. There is a philosophical construct known as the language acquisition device, LAD. In psychology and education, we call it a philosophical language device because we can't prove that it exists. But philosophically, this language acquisition device is wide open and it is very efficient between the age of 2 and 5. So what you want to be doing is you want to be reading with her. You want to be teaching her her alphabet if you don't already know it. Okay, you want to begin to introduce her sight words, and you want to introduce to her the sounds associated with the letters so she can begin to pronounce those sight words. There's no reason why a 5-year-old should not show up in kindergarten already equipped with the ability to read. Your daughter can have that, and she can learn it in 1 year. So let's just say, hypothetically, for parents who are listening who may be a little bit behind, they can catch up real quick. So your daughter is in that language acquisition device expansion period of life, and we want to take advantage of it. The problem that I have with us American Africans is we don't take advantage of that time. When you think of the average African-American child from 2 to 5, maybe not your child, but a lot of our children, what are they doing? Playing, learning music, dancing, watching cartoons, music on the iPad, surfing the internet, watching movies. I mean, most of the time for 2 to 5-year-olds, we give them busy work, stuff that will keep them busy so their parents are freed up to take care of some other things. And it's just unfortunate that during one of the greatest opportunities to expand our children's vocabulary and language skills, in many black households, we're not maximizing that. We're simply putting them in front of gadgets and phones and televisions, and we're missing out on a very, very important period in the development of the child. And the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll take your other question, the other thing I want to say is this helps explain why American African children have the working vocabulary that is usually about 3 grades beneath their class standing or age. So in America, many of our 8th grade children have the working vocabulary of 5th graders. And many of our 5th grade children have the working vocabulary of 2nd graders. And many of our 2nd grade children have the working vocabulary of preschoolers. Our high school students often have the working vocabulary of middle school students. And guess where the foundation was laid? Between 2 and 5. So that period where we should have been taking advantage of the brain's interest in expanding its knowledge of vocabulary by thousands of words. That time when we should have been taking advantage of that, we were not. We were not. And guess what? We tend not to catch up over time. Because if you think about it, especially now in the age of social networking, once a child gets that cell phone, and many parents are so quick to put a cell phone in the hands of their child, smartphone rather, because I don't have a problem with a cell phone in case you need to call your kid needs to call you. But the smartphone, many of us can't wait to put a smartphone in the hands of our children. And once they get that smartphone, are they going to read anymore? Probably not. Which is why I call the cell phone and the iPad and the video game, those are what I call pro-incarceration activities. The cell phone for a black boy is a pro-incarceration activity. The cell phone for a black girl is a pro-poverty activity, because the more time they spend on that cell phone and on that iPad, the less time they're spending reading. And we know that there's a clear relationship between reading skill and future incarceration for boys. and poverty for girls. So I just really hope, especially now, since most of our children are home because of COVID restrictions, it is my sincere hope that parents are making their children read. You can get books from the library. We got public libraries in every city. Yes, a lot of them are being closed because we don't use them. This is a time for reading, not video gaming, not social networking, but it is a time for reading. So every parent out there, your child should be reading at least, minimally, at least one book a month. And that's low. Honestly, they should be getting through a book a week. High school down to preschool, they should be getting through a book a week. And for preschool kids who have not yet learned how to read, we should be reading a book a week with them. We have to show them that reading is fun. We have to show them that reading is important, and then they will see it as fun and important. But if we only treat it as a burden, if children only read when they have schoolwork, if they only read when they have homework, then guess what? They're not going to treat reading as a leisurely activity. Most of our kids only treat reading as a scholastic activity because the only time they read is when they have to for school. We have to change that culture and make reading a part of the family's culture and make reading a leisurely activity. Because for me, it has been a leisurely activity for me since as long as I can remember. I've loved reading. And I don't think it's any small coincidence that I am where I am because I like to read. But go ahead, my brother, with your second question.
Well, my second question, thank you for that knowledge to begin with. My second question is almost kind of pivots off what you just said. My daughter also has like a slight speech impediment where basically her C's sound like T's and things of that nature. So just basically, for example, cake would be take, something to that effect. And I was trying to see how do I approach it, as like I say, starting school to where, in these years, everything is built, for a child's, confidence, self-esteem, things of that nature, but very vital things in a developing mind's future. How would one go approach that? Like I said, she's highly intelligent, highly active, impeccable memory. I would say her frontal cortex and everything, her frontal lobe, everything is developing at a superior rate. Just like I say, pronouncing some words, or just basically just second nature to her. And how would I go about approaching that without, delicately approaching such in this crucial time for her, just like I say, in the early years of about to start school and everything like that. And as far as reading goes, I tried my best to, read with her as much as possible. I'm guilty of myself, reading out of necessity as far as pleasure. As far as based off my profession, just going ahead and reading, several books of literature, this hasn't been my forte. However, if it's a necessity for not necessarily scholastic, I will go ahead and digest as much of the literature as I possibly can and be able to regurgitate it if needed. It's just the way I learned, and was in top 10%, top 20% graduating. It just worked for me. I'm just trying to see how I would instill such, good habits. For one, tackling, like I say, the slight speech and, developing, good habits into my daughter.
Okay, let me ask that question. And thanks for that call, my brother. Thanks for that call. I'm going to answer that and move on to the next caller.
Okay.
Let me deal with this issue of speech. So the question revolved around potential speech delay. Couple of ideas. Number one, if it's what you consider to be a mild issue, and this is for all parents because this was a good question. If you consider it to be a mild issue, then what I would do is I would practice having my child, okay, imitate and model my own speech. So if there's a issue of them convoluting one sound of a letter for the sound of another letter, I would make them look at my mouth as I pronounce the letter, the sound, the word. And then I would have them model that. Sometimes children just need to see how the lips are, how the tongue is, okay, how the mouth moves when it produces a particular sound. So these are just regular exercises you can do with your child by making them watch you as you slowly articulate that particular word, sound, or letter. That's number one. Number two, your child is in preschool, or at least preschool age. So federal special ed law goes into effect at the age of 3. So what I'm saying is, if you wanted to, any parent in America with a child who is at least 3 years old, who suspects that there might be a speech problem or any other problem, okay, could get in contact with the local school board, special education office, or early intervention office, and request an early intervention evaluation for your child who is at least 3, but who has not yet began kindergarten. So if they are at least 3 and has not yet begun kindergarten, so they can be as old as 5, 6, in some cases 7. If they have not begun kindergarten, it is called an early intervention evaluation. And you tell them, my child has some speech limitations, and I would like for them to get evaluated to determine if they qualify for speech therapy. So they will either call you in or send someone to the home or send you to a provider office, and you will sign a permission to evaluate form, giving them permission to evaluate your child and determine whether or not. I need everybody to mute their phones on the call, please. Please mute your phones on the call. And they will provide you with a permission to evaluate form. You will sign that. And then the speech pathologist for the school district or for the agency that the school district contracts with will evaluate your child and determine if they qualify for speech and language service. That determination will be made usually on a 25 to 40% delay. In other words, if your child has a speech delay, but they are not delayed at least 25% compared with other regular children their age, if their delay is not at least 25%, they may not qualify. So let's say your daughter gets evaluated for speech and she does have a delay, but it's only 15%. She can be refused service on the grounds that it's not 25%. And the reason school districts, and it's normally between 25 to 50, some 25 to 40, some school districts could be a little higher, some could be a little lower. And the reason they do this is because they don't have enough speech pathologists to service every child. So the way they try to keep the case load manageable is by requiring that the child have a delay that is at least 25% or greater. So if the child ends up with a delay that's less than 25 to 40%, then you would have to contact a private speech therapist and pay out of pocket for speech therapy. And just to let everybody know, the African American Speech and Language Pathologist Organization is actually based in Pennsylvania. I think it's Pittsburgh. It may not be Pittsburgh. You can Google it online. But the African American Speech and Language Therapist Association, or they might call it the African American Speech and Language Pathologist Association, is based in Pennsylvania. You can call them up, email them through their website, and you can get a referral for a speech therapist in your area if you're going to pay out of pocket. I would also say, if it were me, I would probably pay out of pocket anyway. if I could afford it, because the quality of speech service that our children get in America's public and charter schools is pretty poor, in my opinion. Speech and language therapists, and I'm not throwing them under the bus because I know some very good ones, but in my opinion, speech and language therapists are some of the most, they like to get over. And I'm not saying they do this as a profession, but in that profession, it's easy to evade accountability for your work because it's kind of difficult to prove if you really worked with that child and did a good enough job. And that's why in the Black community, we often see children who have been receiving speech therapy for years, whose speech impediment doesn't improve, whose articulation doesn't improve, whose receptive language skill doesn't improve. Because if you're a speech therapist and you're in that office with that child by yourself, there's no way to prove if you are, mute your phone, please. Mute your phone. You're yelling all on my calls. Excuse me. Mute your phone. Oh man, they doing this on purpose. Okay, let me see if I can mute everybody. That ain't it. Okay, I think they. Okay, can y'all still hear me on the call? Somebody.
I'm still here, bro.
Okay.
No,
Nah, it's okay. That's the haters. That's the haters disrupting the call. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. No, 1 second. I got you. That's the haters. That's the haters. So this is what we're going to have to do, family, on the call. Unfortunately, we have some serious coonism going on. I was hoping they would respect parents who are trying to help their children enough to not disrupt the call. But I have some people, some jealous men and women. I don't want to call them brothers and sisters, but we have some jealous, envious, dysfunctional, mad at their life Negroes out there who don't hold anything sacred, and they would disrupt a call to help Black parents to help.
My first is going to be 14 this year, my middle is going to be turning 11, and then my youngest is 9. And my experience over the years of being a mom has been that there's always been an issue with my children because they do so well. So at the moment now, because there's been, just to cut a long story short, there have been so many exclusions and isolation from my youngest child that I've had to battle through with, having to write to the Minister of Education, having to write to Ofsted, and having to kind of, see reasons with the head teachers to the best way to treat my children. Because what they've always attacked me with was my children have behavioral problems. Now, when I try to dissect and get to the bottom of where they came about this whole behavioral issue, no one seems to give me a concrete solution. So at the moment, I'm able to kind of, threaten legal actions and what to do. So it's at bay. But I fear that when my middle son, who will be going to secondary school, goes away, they will start the attack again on my youngest. So I don't know what to do. Because I didn't even know, the whole systematic, fight against our Black children. And I'm still going through your clips on YouTube and trying to learn and understand how these things work, and it is really astonishing. But I do know that once the school system goes back come September, when my middle son will be going to the secondary school to join his older brother, leaving my youngest at school, I feel that this will resurrect again, and it gets a bit tiring having to fight. Of course, I'm going to keep fighting for my children. They do exceedingly well at school. The top, 5 students. My son has been excluded for nearly almost a whole the whole term we call it here, and he's able to kind of meet up because I've been doing my training at home. Sorry to keep going on, this is a question, but I just need to know, because I've had to sit down with the new head. We've got a new head teacher that has come into play now, and he's kind of tried to attack me, and I've given him a history of what I've been battling with, and so far no one seems to give me any evidence that my children have any issues. But when I then demonstrate how good they are at school, at home, with their academic, activities at home in comparison to the school, it just feels insignificant. And so he made a comment stating that there needs to be a stop to all this, because I could show him records starting from my son, who is now 14. When he was 5, they started this whole issue of behavioral problem simply because he wanted to play the role of one of the king of Egypt, and they were trying to kind of push a white child, in front of this role, and that became an issue. And there's been some occasions where my son would correct his teacher for teaching the wrong things or the wrong terms. So that's been an issue, and I think they've kind of picked on him on that. And I've kind of tried to take the things with so many governing bodies. I don't have any governing body here that fights specifically for me as a black woman with 3 children. I've had to use my academic background to kind of know how to challenge them, without having to show emotions, but just challenge, the accusations, because you have to have concrete evidence. And so far to this very day, no one has given me any. But they keep coming back, with different things. I've had to change schools. Unfortunately, I live in a predominantly white environment, but it doesn't really affect me so much, because I just know who I am, and I don't need to kind of conform to their lifestyle or what to do. But they just kind of, every time I challenge them, they always seem to ask what my background is, what's my level of education, and I don't know what bearing that has got to do with the accusation. So what do I do to prepare myself, because I know it's coming again?
Okay, great question. And I'm sorry you're having this issue. This is a pretty big issue overall. So this is about behavior complaints from the school, mostly white folk complaining about a young African child. Okay, couple things here. Couple things. Number one of the things that you're going to have to fight to get the school and the teacher to understand, and these are psychological facts, by the way, and they are that all behavior is a function of the context and the consequences.
Dr. Umar, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Yes, that's someone trolling on the call. Let's hold on 1 second, Queen. We are in trouble as black people. We are in trouble. Okay, so all behavior is a function of the consequences and the context where it happens. You're going to have to get the teacher in the school to understand that. In other words, constantly calling you up if there's a behavior problem is not a solution, because you're not in charge of the context. The context is the classroom, the setting where behavior happens influences the behavior. So the teacher has to take responsibility for the setting and the triggers in that setting and the variables in that setting that influence your child's behavior. You cannot expect a parent to control a child's behavior in a setting.
It's embarrassing to see you being mean, diminished in your stature because of the way that you're showing yourself. It's embarrassing. You should be embarrassed. Monty Woodring, I'm in your ass. Legal honor, I'm in
All
your
right.
ass.
I'm going to do another phone number. I'm going to hang up and I'm going to do another phone number, family, in 1 minute. I had to hang up the call because somebody got on and started playing YouTube clips. So I'm going to put another number out there. And I'm so sorry because that sister was calling long distance. She was on a long distance call from the United Kingdom and we had to stop the call. Brothers and sisters, this is why I always say we have more coons then we have conscious people. This is a phone call to help our parents. This is a phone call to help black parents. I'm the only one in the country that does this. I'm the only one in the country that does this. Free expert advice from a school psychologist, doctor of clinical psychology. Nobody else is doing this for free. Nobody else is doing this for free. And instead of helping our parents, respecting the space, they want to use it as an opportunity to coon. It's such a shame. But I'm going to put another number in the call. I'm going to put another number in the call. Sad. Sad, sad, sad. Oh man, that is sad. That is a damn shame. She was long distance. I apologize to you, sister. I'm hoping you're watching me because I'm going to answer your question right after I put the new call-in number. And I know how to mute everyone on the new call-in number. That's a damn shame. Can't even have a call for parents. Nah, I don't want Zoom because everybody can't necessarily fit on Zoom. But I may have to go to a Zoom format. Okay. 602. Oof. Okay, this is going to be the new call-in number. I need somebody to put it in the chat. This is going to be the new call-in number. And my sister from the UK, I'm going to answer your question in 1 minute. Okay, so I'm hoping you're watching. This is the new call-in number. And it is 602-580-9231. Please put this in the chat. Please put this in the chat. 602-580-9231. 602-580-9231. And the access code is 397-5228. 397-5228. 397-5228. Thank you, Brother Willie Jones. Brother Will, if you can, go to Instagram and do the same thing, please. Go to Instagram and post the number with the code as well so they'll have it. I know how to meet folks on the other one. It's a shame we even got to be bothered with that. But that just shows you how sick our people are. We are a sick bunch of people. And the people who do that, I can almost promise you that they come to my lectures and get pictures and books signed. Almost promise you. We're not even honest with our jealousy. We will sabotage and show right up at a Dr. Umar event smiling for a picture and a book sign. If you're in the United Kingdom, the number is +44 330 088 1514. Okay, if you're in the United Kingdom, the number is +44 330 088 1514 for the UK. So I'm going to call into that number now. I got to remember my code though. Wow.
Welcome and thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping people around the world communicate for free. Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. If you are the host, press star now. Otherwise, please wait. Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. If you do... Thank you. There are 6 participants in the conference. Please announce yourself.
Okay. All right. You cannot be on the speakerphone. Come on, people. Let's get serious now. Take the call off the speaker.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay. All participants are muted right now. You can unmute yourself after I answer this behavior question. Okay. Behavior. Number 1, as I was telling the sister, all behavior is a function of context and consequences, where it happens and what the teacher does in response to it. Parents can and should support teachers. Parents can influence child behavior at school. After all, they are your child, and you're able to use consequences that teachers do not have at their disposal. But it is important that you educate the school and the teacher to make sure they understand that behavior is a function of where it happens. You have to tell the teacher this. Behavior is a function of where it happens. This is your classroom. This is your classroom. This is your classroom. What are you doing to improve behavior in your class? Okay, so context. Where does the child sit in the class? Who is the child sitting around? What does the teacher do when the child misbehaves? All of this is important. All of this is important. And then the consequences. What do you do when the child is not on task? What do you do when the child is off task? It is not the parent's job to control behavior in a teacher's classroom. And you all have to be very, very adamant about making sure the school knows that you know it is not your job to control behavior in their classroom. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Some of us have some very disorderly, disrespectful children. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Some of us, some of us have some very disorderly, disrespectful, disorganized children. Okay? Can y'all hear me on the line? I believe y'all can, right? Those of you who are calling in, even though I muted the lines, can y'all hear me? Can somebody tell me if you can hear me, please, on the phone?
All participants are muted.
Can y'all hear me on the phone? Let me see something. Let me text somebody. I want to make sure they can hear me on the call. Can somebody text me or let me know if y'all can hear me on the call? I'm assuming y'all can't because no one has responded. Those of you who are on the phone, can you hear me?
All participants are unmuted. Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me now. Did you hear me when it was muted?
Yes.
You did. Okay, so I'm going to mute y'all back again. I just wanted to make sure y'all could hear me when it was muted. Okay.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay, so make sure the school is clear that you are aware that All behavior is a function of where it happens and what happens as a result. Now, with that being said, you should then ask for the teacher's classroom management program. Ask to see it. What is the classroom behavior management program? In other words, when a child misbehaves, what happens? When a child appropriately behaves, what happens? As a parent, you have a right to know whether or not the teacher is doing anything to deal with your child's behavior. And too often the problem is we don't make the teacher accountable for what happens in the class. They make the parent the scapegoat for the whole behavioral situation. They make the parents a scapegoat for the entire behavioral situation, brothers and sisters. Don't let them do that. Yes, you are responsible, but so are the teachers. Make sure they understand that. This is your class. This is your classroom. What are you doing to improve behavior in your classroom? Now, here's what I recommend. If my child was constantly being picked on by teachers, constantly being identified as a behavior problem, you know what I'm going to do? And this is what I recommend that all of you do, including our family in the United Kingdom. Okay? Hire a private psychologist or behavior specialist. Hire a private psychologist or behavior specialist. Have them go into your child's school and observe your child in the classroom and let the school know that I have personally acquired the services of a school psychologist or any psychologist. They're going to come into the child's class. They're going to observe my son, observe my daughter, observe my grandchild, and then we're going to have a meeting after they conduct their observations to determine how we can work together to improve my child's behavior. That's how you cut this situation down, because you cannot assume the teacher is telling you the truth. Let me say that again. You cannot assume that the teacher is telling you the truth. Let me say that one more time. You cannot assume that the teacher is telling you the truth. Teachers lie. And if they don't like your child, they will really lie in order to get that child put out the class, put out the school, put on medicine, thrown in special education. So the only way you can prove if the teacher is lying or telling the truth is to hire somebody outside the school and hire that person, okay, to go into the class and observe your child. Now, they should observe your child 3 times, minimally 3 times. 3 times, 3 1-hour observations. Week number 1, 9 o'clock in the morning during math class. Week number 2, 11 o'clock in the morning, language arts. Week number 3, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, social studies. You see that? 3 different observations, 3 different weeks, 3 different times, 3 different subjects. And the reason you want to do that is because if you only get 1 observation and your child was really, really bad that day, then that observation can misrepresent how your child really acts. If you only get 1 observation and your child was really, really well behaved that day, then that 1 observation can be an aberration. That's not a good sample of behavior. So I'm saying you need to get 3 samples. I'm saying you need to get 3 samples of behavior. 3. If you have 3 samples and that child is pretty much acting the same way after 3 samples, we can pretty much put confidence in those samples that they are an accurate representation of your child's behavior. So get at least 3 samples. You can get 4 observations. You can get 5. You can get 6. But I'm trying to be sensitive to your pocketbook. I'm trying to be sensitive to your pocketbook here. Well, on Instagram, I don't know how to turn off the comments during a live. If you know how I can do that, then I will definitely turn the comments off on Instagram. I don't know how to do that during a live. But anyway, okay, but just stay focused because I'm focused. Don't mind the coons. The coons are actually our fault because we have not been raising black children to be respectful. We have not been raising them to respect their community. We have not been raising them to respect children, to respect family. So this is our fault. This is our fault. If I was a white psychologist doing this for white people, we would not have none of this. If I was a Latino psychologist doing this for Latino parents, we wouldn't be having this problem. If I was a Chinese psychologist giving free service to Chinese parents to help their children, we would not have this. The only reason we have this is because I'm black. The only reason this is happening is because I'm black. And because we as black people don't respect one another. That's the only reason why. Other people watching this, they're probably shaking their head. This man is giving out thousands of dollars of free information, and people of his own community are trying to sabotage his attempt to help their own parents. Okay? So this is post-traumatic slavery disease. This is. So hire someone to go into the classroom. Hire someone to go into the classroom and observe your child. Because if that psychologist goes into the classroom to observe your child and they don't find any problems, or they might find that your child is misbehaving, but so are all of the other children. What if your child is in the classroom where all of the children misbehave? See, if all the children are misbehaving, or if half the children are misbehaving, or if most of the children are misbehaving, then this is not about your child. This is about the classroom. You cannot expect one child to behave when the rest of them are misbehaving. You cannot expect one child to misbehave when the rest of them are misbehaving, brothers and sisters. So that is my recommendation. And if your child is in special ed, if your child is a special ed student, the IEP team must conduct a functional behavioral assessment and a positive behavior plan. The IEP team must conduct a functional behavioral assessment and they must create a positive behavior plan to address the special ed child's needs. If they do not have a functional behavioral assessment and positive behavior plan attached to the IEP, then you could argue that that IEP is invalid, it is not appropriate, and you could force the school to pay for your child to go to a private school where they will get the type of behavioral management skills that they require. Special ed children have more rights than regular children. Special ed children have more rights than regular children. So if you have a special ed child, you can really make the teacher be accountable. You can really make the principal be accountable because special ed law says that you must. Special ed law says that you must meet the needs, behavioral needs of special ed kids. Let me go.
All participants are unmuted.
Okay, let me go to the back to the lines. If you have a question, go ahead and shout your city out for me, please.
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Big woo, big woo, big woo. Let me get a woo in the chat. Let me get a big woo in the chat.
Woo, woo. So can I ask my question?
1 second, my brother. Go right ahead with the question.
Okay, I got a 13-year-old son, and I'm having an issue with the school. And the issue that I'm having with the school is they're not helping me. And when I say they're not helping me, I'm not able to get any kind of services for him. Being that we don't live in a low-performance school district,
they're not wanting to identify him for any type of services. And so the problem that we're having is emotionally having issues versus, and what it's doing is it's affecting him with the school, his concentration, not being able to stay focused. And so the issue that he's having is we lost his sister 3 years ago, and so he really hasn't come back from that. And so that's just all around affecting him at school. It's been something that's been brought up with the school meeting after meeting, and now
what kind of service are you in search of, my brother? What kind of service?